Welcome everybody to part 8 of our ongoing series on Bayit, Sheni, and redemption. Last week we said we're going to talk about dropping a bomb on Bavel. That was the next parak to talk about in Sefer Zechariah, but instead we're going to have a special class on in Yoni the Yoma, what's happening at present times, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the material and go up like a wall, but we're going to go out of order in order to focus more on what's happening presently. To begin, we'll pick up where we left off at the very end of last week, where we talked about Lo v'chayav v'lo b'koach ki im beruchi Omar Hashem tzvakos, a message from Hashem through the prophet Zechariah to Zerubbabel that we will not win our wars because we have more powerful armies and our own might, but only with Hashem's spirit. And I had a Musar message at the end of chapter 20 in Go Up Like a Wall. I just want to read a short passage to you from the Sefer as follows. The deeper message here is in fact relevant to all times, particularly modern Israel. With apologies to the politicians and military strategists who think the safety of Israel is in their cunning and might, they are far less important than they deem themselves to be. We will always be outnumbered and outgunned by our enemies, and that is precisely the way it is supposed to be, so that it will be unmistakable that Hashem fights our battles for us. When the Jews lose sight of this and put all their trust in their own capabilities, there is guaranteed to be a bad outcome in one of two ways, which often follow one another. One, they become dangerously overconfident and will ultimately be humbled by a military setback, possibly even an actual defeat, God forbid. Two, they realize that they can't possibly maintain a military advantage and rely on the nations of the world to protect them. The Jews have historically fallen into these traps over and over again, and they continue to do so in our time. Not with an army and not with strength, but with my spirit, says the God of hosts. So on that note, we're going to segue to Torah perspective on the laws of war, the mindset that we should have when we are facing war and entering into actual battle. Very, very basic stuff. We're going to start from the Chumash, Parsha Shoftim, Perek Chaf, beginning with Pasuk Aleph, the very beginning of the chapter. When you go out to war against your enemy, and you see sus varechev, horses and chariots, am rav mimcha, much greater people than you have. Lo sira mehem, do not be afraid of them. The Torah forbids us to be afraid of our enemies. Now we're human beings, we have emotions, we have instincts. The Torah forbids us to be afraid. We have to overcome it. We'll see how momentarily. Ki Hashem elokecha imach, because Hashem, your God, is with you. Hama'alcha me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took you out from the land of Egypt. God has a good track record with us. He saved us from danger before, therefore we have to trust in him. Obviously, we have to keep up our end of the bargain too. We can't forfeit Hashem's protection over us, but if we're doing what we should be doing, we must count on Hashem to keep up his end of the deal. Let's see Rashi over here. Okay, when you go out to do war. The Torah juxtaposes going out to war with the previous chapter, which is talking about laws of monetary cases, justice in the courts, etc. To tell you, she'ein mechusar aver yotzi l'milchama. First of all, to tell you the one who is missing a limb, who's handicapped, shouldn't go out to war. The most recent psukim are talking about an eye for an eye, so people who are physically damaged shouldn't go out to war. Davar acher, another interpretation, to tell you, im asisa mishpat tzedek, if you have done justice and righteousness, if your court systems are honest, your society is righteous and just, ata muftach, you are guaranteed. That if you go out to war, you will be victorious. This is an ironclad guarantee straight from Har Sinai, from Hashem in the Torah, that if we have a just and righteous society, we have honest courts, we are honest in our dealings with other people. We can't always be responsible for the courts. Unfortunately, today, we don't have so much power over the courts, but in a perfect world, we would. At least in our own private business dealings, we should be honest and righteous, and we are guaranteed when we go out to war, we will be victorious. And so David says in Tehillim Kufiyot Tes 119, Asisi Mishpat V'Tzedek, I have done justice and righteousness. Baal Tanicheni Loshkai, do not abandon me to those who oppress me. Rashi continues, Alo Yevecha, against your enemies. Obviously, who are you going to war against? You're not going to war against your friends. So why does the Torah specify your enemies? It should be self-understood. The Rashi explains, Yiyu Beinecha Ka'oivim. Of course they're your enemies, but you have to view them and perceive them in your eyes as your enemies. Al tirachim aleim, do not have mercy upon them, ki lo yirachmu alecha, because they will not have mercy on you. And boy, isn't this a trap that the Jewish people have fallen into over and over again, especially in modern Israel, we have mercy on our enemies, and we think that that is the pathway to having peace, that we're fighting hatred with love. You don't fight hatred with love. You fight to win, because if you fall into their hands, God forbid, they will not have mercy on you. We've seen this over and over and over again. When they take hostages, or God forbid, when people otherwise fall into their hands, they have no mercy. So we don't have mercy on them either. It is not meritorious and virtuous to have mercy on those who are cruel towards you. Finally, Rashi says on this pasuk, sus v'rechev, a horse and a chariot, the einai kulam kisus echad. In my eyes, says Hashem, they're all like one horse, because sus and rechev is a horse and a chariot. You're not facing one horse and one chariot in battle. You're facing many, many horses and chariots. But the Torah speaks in singular form, because as far as Hashem is concerned, it doesn't matter how many hundreds, thousands, or even millions of enemies and weapons that they have. As far as Hashem is concerned, it's one. He knocks them right over, and that's the end of it. And that's why we shouldn't have fear. And so it says in Sefer Shoftim, this is Parsha Shoftim, you shall strike Midyan like one man. And so it says in Sefer Shmos, sus Paro, and the horse of Paro came. Paro came with many horses, but as far as Hashem is concerned, it was one horse. So it doesn't matter the numbers, the statisticians, the data, none of that matters. All that matters is, like we said last week, are we with Hashem? Is Hashem with us or not? The rest of it is all smokescreen. Am Rav Mimcha, a people, an army that is greater than you. Be'einecha Rav, in your eyes it's many. Aval be'einai eino Rav, but in my eyes, Hashem, it's not many, and therefore you don't have to worry about it. The main thing is to be spiritually safe, to be spiritually sound and on board with Hashem. Let's continue. Pasuk Beis, verse 2. And it will be when you draw close to the actual battle. And a Kohen, a spiritual leader, will speak to the people. Not a general. The generals do talk to the people later on, but the first message that they hear is coming essentially from a teacher of Torah, giving them a spiritual message. And he shall say to them, Shema Yisrael, listen Israel. You are approaching today to do battle against your enemies. Your hearts shall not be soft. Al tira'u, do not be afraid. Al tachbizu, another will have a few languages of fear. Tachbizu is basically to be so afraid that you're rushing into something without thinking about it, panicking, right? Al tarzu, do not be broken, mipenehem, from before them. So Rashi says over here, Shema Yisrael, of course, those are words that ring a bell to all of us. Afilu ein bochem zechus ela kriya shma bilvad. Even if you only have a merit of saying kriya shma, of saying the pasuk, Shema Yisrael, Kedai atem shel sheeschem. That is enough. That is worthy to save you. You are worthy of being saved because of that simple mitzvah, which is the first mitzvah, or one of the first mitzvahs that every Jewish child learns, to say Shema Yisrael. I saw an incredible story yesterday that one of the young women who was at this party in the desert. Now that's a problem in its own right. There was a Buddhist statue there. It draws up images of Jews in the desert dancing around an idol. That's not what they should have been doing on Shabbos and Yom Tov. But we'll leave that to the side for the moment. There still are people. Okay, so she was one of the people who was running in panic from the scene. They were being attacked, and she was hiding under a tank which had been abandoned. She thought she would be safe there. She was shot at some point in the leg. She was bleeding. She was in terrible, terrible danger. She felt that she was on the verge of losing her life. She was obviously not a religious person, but she said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem save me. And she was saved. She was saved by a miracle. The Arabs didn't see her. They didn't finish the job with her. She was able to hold out. She was able to be rescued. She was trapped for many hours, but she was able to hold on in the schus of saying Shema Yisrael. Now the cynics will say, well, how many Jews throughout history have said Shema Yisrael and they were slaughtered? Because there are many factors that go into it. Of course, this is not the only factor involved. This is not a magic button that you press to say Shema Yisrael and all of the world's problems are solved. But this is a very strong merit. Even if you simply have the merit of saying Shema Yisrael, that is enough, at least some of the time, for some people to swing the scales in your favor and save you. This isn't nonsense. This is prophecy. This is the Torah itself from Har Sinai. We should take it seriously. Pasuk Daled, verse 4. Because Hashem your God is going with you to fight for you with your enemies to rescue you. Now the officers speak that until now is the Kohen, the teacher of Torah, speaking to the people. Now the generals, the officers speak to the people as follows. Who is the man who built a new house and did not yet inaugurate it? He didn't make a new party, a housewarming party. So let him go and return to his house. We don't want you fighting this battle. Lest he die in the war, and somebody else will then take over his house. And that would be particularly agmas nefesh. It's a tragedy when anybody loses their life in war, but it's a particular tragedy when somebody just built a new house and didn't have the chance to live in it yet. That magnifies the tragedy. So we want to minimize the chance of an even greater tragedy than the ordinary tragedy, people dying in war. Therefore, go home. And who is the man who planted a vineyard and didn't yet take the first fruits from that vineyard? He should also go and return home. Lest he die in the war and somebody else will take over his vineyard and enjoy the fruits. And that also is particularly tragic. He's also starting a new chapter in life. He's planting a vineyard and he's not even going to enjoy the grapes and the wine from his own vineyard. And one more person gets sent home. One who, literally in English, they use the word betrothed a woman, but it's actually marriage. It's different stages in marriage. One who started the marriage process with a woman. He didn't start living with her, but he officially is still married to her. But he didn't take her yet into his home. He should go and return home. Today we do Erusin and Nisuin basically at the same time. But in the olden days, they would start the marriage process, but they wouldn't yet live together. The man would have time to get a house in order. The woman would take time as well to gather everything that she needed to move in with him and start being a wife. So it would take a period of months until they started living together, even though they were officially married. So this is somebody who started the marriage process with a woman, but has not yet lived with her. So he should also go home. Unless he die in the war and somebody else will then take her for his wife, which is particularly tragic. Now think for a moment over here. There might be massive numbers of soldiers who are being told at the scene of the battle, go home, we don't want you fighting. These might be the generals themselves. These might be the SWAT team, the best soldiers, your crack soldiers. They're now sending home. Why? Because they planted a vineyard. So what is the Torah indicating to you over here? It doesn't necessarily matter how many people you have fighting in the army. It doesn't matter if they're the best and the brightest people fighting in the army. Hashem wants these people to go home. This is a mitzvah in the Torah. I don't want them fighting. I don't care if they're the most experienced and finest and bravest soldiers. I want them going home because that's the way I said it to be, which means our wars are not being fought naturally. Our wars are being fought by Hashem, and Hashem gives us the formula of who he wants there and who he doesn't want. And this also gives an opportunity. Let's say somebody wants to shirk his military responsibilities for whatever reason. He can have a quickie marriage with somebody, can quickly build a home. We'll see what the Rambam says shortly. And then he can get out of the war. Very simply, goes home. It's a get out of jail free card. And the answer is yes, a person can do that. Do we advise people to do that? Do we encourage people to do that? Obviously not. But the Torah opens a door for people who, for whatever personal reason, want to get out of fighting in the war. They can do so in a perfectly legal way. Perfectly legal way. The Torah gives them that opportunity because, again, the Torah wants people to fight who want to fight, who can fight. Jews should want to fight, but if they don't want to fight, we don't need them. Hashem doesn't need them. It's fine. So all the infighting that we have in Israel today about people shirking the draft and military duty, and they think their Torah is more important than fighting, and their brothers are dying and risking their lives, and they're sitting and learning Torah, is all moot according to the Torah. Now, again, like I said before, we do have a responsibility to physically protect our people. The Torah scholars in the times of the Torah, in the times of the Torah, also fought wars. But at the same time, that's not going to swing the balance of whether or not we win the war. It's where we stand spiritually as a people. If we are unified, if we are keeping the Torah, if we have a righteous and just society, then we are guaranteed to win. That's what the Torah says. So that's what we should be focusing on, not counting who's there and who isn't there and who's doing what and keeping score. That's not the most important thing. Pasuk Ches. Yasfu ashotrim lidaber elam, and now the officers continue to speak to the people. Va'amru, and they shall say, Mio'ish hayarei v'rach halevav. Who is afraid and soft at heart? Yelech v'yashav v'eso. You also go home. He shouldn't melt the hearts of his brothers with him. So you don't even need these get out of jail free cards. If you're simply afraid, go home. So that really opens up the door for droves and droves of people to leave, and you might be left with a very small army at that point against multitudes. That's what the mitzvah is. Now, Rashi over here on Pasuk Ches says as follows: Hayare v'rach halevav. Rabbi Akiva Omer Kimashmo. Rabbi Akiva explains this literally. She'eno yachol lamo b'kishri hamilchama v'liros cherev shlufa. He's not able to stand in the throes of battle and see a sword lifted against him. Some people have more bravery, and some people don't have bravery. They're cowards. If you're afraid, if you can't handle fighting, you can't handle bloodshed, go home. That's okay. You have an automatic license to go home. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Yomer. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says, Hayare me'avero shebiyada. One who is afraid from the sins that he did. Ulakach tolsalo Torah lachzar al bayis v'keren v'isha. Somebody who's afraid. I didn't do enough mitzvahs. I did some bad things in my life, and I'm afraid Hashem is not going to protect me. Chazal say, "Satan mekatreg b'shas hasakana." The Satan prosecutes people in a time of danger. It might not be his time to die, but since it's a dangerous time, he needs extra merits to be protected, and he is afraid of bad things that he did. Of course, he could always do tshuva, but let's say, his heart is knocking him. I don't think Hashem is going to be with me. Go home. That's okay too. So this really opens up the door for lots and lots of people. The Rambam talks about the level of sin that a person might be afraid of. The commentaries go into details about this. But for our purposes, just a simple meaning is fine for now. A person is afraid of his spiritual standing with Hashem. The door is open for him to go home as well. And the Rashi continues, that's why the Torah also allowed people to go home for building a house, planting a vineyard, or getting married. To cover up. To cover up for the people who are returning because of sins that they did. Okay, that people shouldn't understand that if they're leaving the war, they must be sinners. They must be ashamed of something terrible that they did. Okay, so therefore, one who sees people leaving the army, Omer will say, Shema Bana Bayis. Maybe he built a new house. Oh, not that or planted a vineyard. Eretz Yisrael, or you just got married. They'll say he might not be a bad guy. The Torah is actually covering up for draft dodgers. The Torah is covering up for people who are afraid that they've done sins, and who among us can say that we haven't? Who among us can say, I can go into war 100% confident that Hashem will be with me because I'm perfect? Everybody's afraid of something. Everybody's done something that they're not so proud of, right? And the Torah gives you the opportunity to go home because of that, and will even cover up your shame in going. This is not natural. This is not normal. There is no army in the history of the world that functioned this way or could function this way. It's insane. Unless Hashem is real and the Torah is real, and the Jewish people accepted this because they experienced for themselves that this was real. No people on earth could have a prophet or somebody posing as a prophet come to them and say, we're going to start a country and these are going to be the laws of war. The people would say, you're crazy. Nobody would accept it unless they knew 100% that it was true because they experienced it for themselves. This is how a Jewish army operates. This is the mindset of how we fight a war. This is the laws of war. Let's continue. Pasuk Yud. So now we're actually approaching the battle. When you get close to a city to do battle against it, you shall first call out to them in peace. Okay, now this is not in all wars. When you're fighting, when the war has already started, you're already really fighting your enemies, then the time for peace is over. We're not going to do everything over here. Let's skip to Pasuk. Let's do it all. It's only a couple of psukim. They answer you in peace, that they're essentially going to surrender to you. That's the meaning of peace, that they surrender. They will open up to you. They will allow you in. All the people that are in there will be a tribute to you, and they shall serve you. That's what peace means. Peace doesn't mean a ceasefire. Peace doesn't mean that we give them land or make concessions for them. Peace means we win, they lose, but we don't have to fight in order to accomplish that goal. That is the definition of peace according to the Torah. On our terms, 100% on our terms. If they don't make peace with you, and they do war against you, then you shall besiege the city. Now Rashi says over here, he says, the pasuk, the Torah is informing you, that if they don't make peace with you, you make this gesture towards them to avoid fighting, and they do not make peace with you, in the end, they will wage war against you. Those are the only two options. Either they're going to make peace or they're going to make war. If you leave them alone and let them go, that's a very bad mistake, the Torah says. If they don't accept peace on your terms, and you just say, okay, we don't feel like fighting today, it's not worth it, and you go, they are going to make war against you. How many times do we have to learn this lesson in real life over and over and over again? It's right here, a pasuk, a Rashi, very, very simple. We've all learned this. If we haven't learned it, time to brush up on our parsha, on our Chumash. This is very, very basic. If the enemies do not make peace with you, they will make war with you in the end, and you will pay a much greater price down the road. Hashem will give them into your hands. And you shall strike all the men by the sword. Okay? No pity, no hostages. Rashi says over here, Hashem will give them into your hands. If you've done everything that I've said so far, meaning you keep the Torah, you keep the laws of war as I have outlined for you, so you are guaranteed in the end, Hashem will deliver them into your hands. You want to guarantee a victory against your enemies? Do what the Torah says. Follow the formula. Now on this about wiping out the men in war. Again, we gave them the opportunity for peace, and one of the laws is we actually leave a part of the city open. We give them safe passage for anybody who doesn't want to fight and simply wants to abandon the land to us. That's fine too. We're not trying to commit genocide and wipe people out. However, once the war starts, that's when the mercy ends. There's no mercy in war against our enemies. Now, I personally am nauseated by people who continue to pander to the nations of the world with their explanations, their rationalizations, and concern for, quote, innocent loss of life on both sides, that sort of thing. These Jews are ashamed of the Torah, even if they appear to be from, and they can't get the gullahs out of their system. There is no innocent loss of life on both sides. War is a ugly, dirty business. It's a bloody business. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. It's not, if they are not making peace with us, they are making war with us. They're not innocent anymore. In war, you have to do what you have to do. Now let's skip ahead a little bit further to the next to later on the next parsha, Kiseitze, Paragraph Gimel, chapter 23, Psukim Yud to Tesvav, 10 to 15. These are more laws of warfare, and again, this is very counterintuitive. There's no army in the world that operates like this. Kiseitze machane al ayevecha, when you have an army camp going out against your enemy, v'nishmarta mikol davara, you shall guard yourself from anything that is evil. And Rashi here says, like I said before, that is a particularly spiritually sensitive time. You're going out to war, you're in a place of danger, so now the books are being opened, who shall live and who shall die. You want to have as many merits as possible. So you got to be very careful from anything bad. If there is a man among you who is not pure from seminal emissions at night, he shall exit the camp. He shall not come to the camp. So what is the example of having something bad among you? Somebody who is not spiritually 100% pure. That's the baseline. And towards evening he shall go to the mikvah, literally wash in water. And when the sun sets, he shall come back to the camp when he's spiritually pure. Then he reads. Now, naturally speaking, rationally speaking, should this be first and foremost on the minds of the soldiers when they're facing an enemy? Got to go to the mikvah. I got to be separate. I'm not totally spiritually pure. I got to wait till evening. Should this be first and foremost on people's minds? According to the Torah, yes. Yes, that's what the Torah says. Plain and simple. You shall have a place for yourself outside the camp. And you shall go there outside, meaning when you need to use the bathroom, don't go inside the camp. Go outside the camp. Have a place. Keep your camp not just spiritually clean, but physically clean as well. Go outside the camp. This is what the Torah is emphasizing when you're going out to war. This is what you should be occupied with. Have a clean bathroom outside the camp, not in the middle of everything. People are going to be davening. People are going to be studying Torah in their spare time. The camp should be a clean place. You can't daven in a bathroom. You can't daven in a place that stinks. So that stuff should be going outside the camp. And you shall have a little shovel with you among your weapons. You have your gun, you have your knife, you have your medicine, your first aid kit, your food, your rations, right? Also have a little shovel. And shall be when you go outside the camp, and you will dig with it and then return and cover up that which has exited your body. So all the things that soldiers have to schlep to war, their backpacks are very heavy. You see the massive backpacks that they travel with. They got to have a shovel there too. Make it half a pound heavier so they can cover up their excrement when they go outside the camp. This is what the Torah emphasizes. Why? Because Hashem, your God, is going in the midst of your camp to save you, and to give your enemy before you. And your camp shall be holy. There should be nothing unseemly visible in you, in your camp, and then Hashem will return. He'll take his Shekhinah, God forbid, away from you in a time of war. You want Hashem's Shekhinah with you. Hashem's Shekhinah doesn't like to be sitting in the middle of a bathroom. So you make sure that your camp is clean because Hashem is with you fighting. That's how we win our wars. There is no army in the history of the world that they even entertained the idea of soldiers carrying a shovel and having a clean camp because God is with them in the camp. Only the Jewish people. This is how we win our wars. And again, if a false prophet came to the Jews and said, this is my idea for building an army, they would laugh at him. They would laugh at him. But again, we know this is true. We know this 100% is true, and this is what we have to be focusing on. So we should not have rainbow people in our camp. The modern Israeli army that we have today is not a Jewish army per se. It's not really fighting according to the ways of the Torah. I mean, there are a lot of very fine Jews in the army, but their philosophy, the philosophy overall of the army, is not to follow the ways of the Torah, to fight according to the ways of the Torah. We have to get back to basics. We have to get back to what the Torah says, and then we are guaranteed to win. Okay, now I want to switch now to the Rambam on Hilchos Malachim U'Melchamos, the Rambam's laws of kings and wars. This comes from Perek Zayin, chapter 7, and we're going to start with Halacha Hey. Halacha 5. The Rambam writes as follows: Echad abona bayis lishivaso, whether one builds a house for himself to dwell in, the echad abona beis habakar, or one builds a house for cattle, which is also suitable for people to live in, beis ha'etzim, or a storehouse for wood, which again is suitable for people to dwell in, beis ha'otzaros, a warehouse. Whole of the royal ladira, since all of these buildings are appropriate for people to live in, the echad abona, and not just one who builds it, the echad alokech, one who even purchases it. The echad shnitin lo b'matana o ayorish, the one who is given to him as a gift or he inherits it. Harei zechozer. In all these places, the person goes back from the army. Aval abona beis hateven u beis sharach sadron petzas, one who builds basically a temporary dwelling, a gatehouse, a porch, something like that, which is not really suitable for living in. Or he says a house is not 4 amos by 4 amos, which is smaller even than most people's sukkah, a tiny little shack. Or a gozel bias, one who steals a house, that person doesn't go back. Okay, so the Rambam here outlines the laws of going back from war. He also talks about vineyards and getting married and the details of who goes back and who doesn't go back. But we see illustrated from here that one who wants to get out of fighting in the army can get out of it very, very easily. I'll give you my house and you give me your house, and then we're both exempt from the army. We both get a get out of jail free card. Again, no human mind would come up with these ideas for an army, but we're still here. We fought a lot of wars in our history, and this is because we kept the Torah. Okay, let's skip now to Halacha Tes, Law 9. All those who do return from the battle scene, when they hear the words of the Kohen and they see that they are exempt for one of these reasons, okay, they don't go home and drink iced tea and watch what's going on their television, but they supply water and food to their brothers in the army. There's other things that have to be done for the needs of the army besides fighting. Not everybody is in combat. They fix up the roads. They help the soldiers travel. Soldiers need food services, laundry services. The roads have to be taken care of. A lot of paperwork to be done, right? There's a lot of things that need to be done for the army to be successful beyond combat. So these people are exempt simply from combat duty, but they do have to assist in other ways. There's many ways that we can help our brothers who are on the battle scene. We all have to chip in our own way. The Rambam continues with Halacha Yud, number 10. But there are some people who don't even go out to the battle scene at all. Some people have to go out, even though they know the Kohen is going to tell them to go home, they still have to go out. And then the Kohen tells them to go back, and then they help in other ways. So some people don't even leave their homes. The army sends them a draft, they tear it up and throw it in the garbage. We don't trouble them for anything in the world. We don't trouble them for anything. The nation's in trouble, don't bother me right now. These are those people. Habone Bayas Vachanocho, one who built his house, and he did inaugurate it the first year now. Now he's living in his house. That first year, he's exempt. Or one who completed the marriage process with this woman that he betrothed, or even a woman that fell to him from his brother who didn't have any children, and he married her. Okay, that first year, he stays home. Umi Shechilo Karma, one who planted the vineyard and did enjoy the first grapes for that first year. Ein Yotzin Atom Shona, they do not leave their homes at all for an entire year. They can stay home and watch everything from there. Shenemar, as it says in Devarim Perachaf Dalid Pasuk Hey, Naki Yela Veisal Shano Achas. He shall be clean and free for his house for a full year. And he should give simcha, joy, to his wife. Right, his new wife is going to be very scared. Her husband's going out to fight a battle. They just got married. That first year is very important for building the foundation of their marriage and family life. So this is especially important. The Torah prioritizes a man to be with his wife without any national responsibilities for an entire year over going out to fight our enemies. This is really important over here, because what is the philosophy? What is the message that the Torah is sending us? First of all, what's really important? Being a family person, being with your wife and children. Of course, you have to go out and work, you have to go out and fight at times, but this is what we're fighting for. We're fighting to build families. And therefore, there's an overarching responsibility to be with your wife in the first year that trumps even going out to fight. That sends a very powerful message about how the Torah values getting married, being with your wife, building a family. Second of all, it also emphasizes the fact that Hashem is fighting our wars, because again, this might be your finest soldier. He might be your sniper, your expert in a particular area. He doesn't even leave his home. He doesn't even show up for the draft, because the Torah says you got to stay home and be with your wife. Well, what about my brothers who are fighting? What about winning the war? Hashem says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. From our tradition, we learn, continues the Rambam, Shianaki Shana, that he's free for a whole year. Bain la Bayashikana, whether he purchased a house, Bain la Isha Shanasa, or whether he married a woman, Bain la Kerem Shehitzkalechel Period, or whether for a vineyard that he started to eat his fruits. I might think of all the things in the world. So the guy started eating his grapes. Big deal. Let him go out and fight. Torah says no. He planted a vineyard. It's Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Very important to build up the land of Israel, which includes planting vineyards. This man's got to take care of his vineyard. That's also for the greater good. That's also for the sake of the nation. We need homes. We need families. We need vineyards. He's also fighting for the Jewish people. He's not in combat fighting our enemies right now, but he is fighting for the Jewish people by building up our land, and therefore he is exempt for an entire year. Let him eat his grapes and drink his wine. This is astounding. Let's continue in the Rambam. We're going to skip now to Halacha Yud Daled. Anybody who builds a house or plants a vineyard outside of Israel, he does not return from the battle scene because of that. Just food for thought, a little fun because of that, right? That you don't get a get out of jail free card for building up the exile, right? You only get this exemption for building up the land of Israel. Just saying. And the final Rambam over here is really incredible. So the Rambam understands this pasuk. Man who is afraid and soft at heart and goes home, he follows the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, who says it's literal. He's literally afraid to fight, not afraid of the sins that he did per se, but physically afraid to be in war. She'ein belibo koach lama b'tishrim chama. His heart doesn't have the strength to stand in the throes of battle. Ume'achar sheyikones b'kishri al-machama. But once he enters the battle, let's say he makes up his mind, you know what, I'm good to go. I have enough courage to fight. There's no backsies after that. Yishoin al mikveh Yisrael u'moshio be'isarav. Then he has to rely on the hope of Israel, meaning Hashem, and the one who saves us in a time of trouble. The Yeda, and he shall know, not to believe, but to know. We don't have faith, we have knowledge. Shall yichud Hashem who also Melchama. He is fighting the war for the sake of Hashem's great name. There's one God, we are his people, and that's why we're fighting this war. It's a holy war, truly a holy war. The Yasim nafsha b'chapo, and he shall place his life in his palm. Below Yira, below Yifchad, and he shall not be afraid or terrified in any way. Below Yachshav, below Be'ishto, below Be'banam, and he should not even think about his wife and children. When you're on the war, you got to be laser focused on the task at hand, because if you think about the other things, it's going to distract you and frighten you. So once you're on the battle scene, you got to be laser focused, just like when you're doing any other mitzvah, you have to focus entirely on the mitzvah. He has to erase any memory of his wife and children from his heart. And clear his mind from anything else just to fight the war. Listen to this. Anybody who starts to think about and worry about these things in war, and he terrifies himself. I might think, well, where's the terror coming from? From what I see. I see terrible things in war, and therefore, no, it's from you. If you're afraid, it's because there's something wrong with you at this point. Okay, you have to drive the fear out of your system. And if you're afraid, it's because there's something lacking. So you're terrifying yourself. Over, below, sase, you are transgressing a negative commandment in the Torah. Shnemar, as it says, your hearts shall not be soft. Al tiru, do not be afraid. Vel tachbezu, do not be frightened and rushed. Vel tartu mipaneim, do not be broken before them. The Rambam understands this literally as a negative commandment. You are not allowed to be afraid in war. Okay? How do you not be afraid in war? By having bitachon. You have to work on yourself. It takes time. But a Jew who has the proper mindset, who really internalizes this, will not be afraid, is not allowed to be afraid. Below, but the Rambam's not done. Not only this, all of the blood of Israel is hanging from his neck, right? You have a big responsibility when you're fighting on the war. And if you're weak, and because you're weak-hearted and you're afraid, and you're sinning by being afraid, that's going to compromise your ability to do the mitzvah. You are responsible for Jewish blood that is shed. Incredible words. And if he is not triumphant in the war, below and if he does not fight with all his heart and soul, it is as if he spilled the blood of everybody else. Shnemar, as it says, he shall not melt the heart of his brothers like his heart. You're weak at heart, that's your problem, but don't frighten other people. And we know from our tradition in Sefer Yirmiyah, Perek Mem Ches 48, Pasuk Yud, cursed is one who is deceitful in doing the work of Hashem. And cursed is the one who holds back his sword from blood. You're fighting your enemy, you got to kill your enemy. That's a mitzvah, you've got to do it. And if you have pity on your enemy, like Shaul did with Agag, a king had professional courtesy for his fellow king. And many, many Jews fell throughout history because of that. It was a terrible, grievous error that he made. You're not allowed to hold back your sword from your enemy. The Rambam continues, anybody who does fight with his full heart, without any fear, and his intention is only to sanctify Hashem's name. He's not doing it for the glory of victory, to capture the spoils of war. He's doing it only to sanctify Hashem's name because it's a mitzvah. Muftach lo, he is guaranteed. Shelo yimsa nezek, he will not find any harm. Below tagieu ra, no harm will befall him. This is an astounding guarantee. Again, it opens him up to all the cynics of the world, but this is what the Rambam writes. Anybody who does this with the truly proper mindset, he is guaranteed that no harm will befall him. The Yivna lo bayis nacham Yisrael, he will merit to build a proper house in Israel. The Yizke lo ulavanav ad olam, and he will merit for himself and his children until the end of days. The Yizke lechai olam haba, he will merit life in the next world. Shnemar, as it says in Sefer Shmuel, he also yasa Hashem ladoni bayis neman, that Hashem will surely make for my Lord a trustworthy house, a faithful house. Ki melchamos Hashem adoni nilcham. Why? Because my Lord fought the wars of Hashem, right? We see from here an explicit pasuk that because David HaMelech fought the wars of Hashem, he will merit to have a bayis neman b'Yisrael. No evil will find you. And it continues later on in the next pasuk. And the soul of my Lord will be bound up in the binds of life with Hashem, your God. So that is a guarantee from the Torah as outlined by the Rambam. I want to do a little bit longer today than usual. I want to look at Sefer Shoftim, and this is in Go Up Like a Wall, so it does still somewhat connect to our usual classes, just doing it a little bit out of order. This comes from Sefer Shoftim, Parak Yud Aleph. Chapter 11 is Sefer Shoftim, Book of Judges. This is the story of Yiftach fighting against Ammon. Now, Yiftach was not a Gadol Hadar. He was not a great rabbi. He had a very rough background, but he was faithful to Hashem. He had very strong faith in Hashem. We don't have time to do the whole chapter. I want to just jump into the middle over here. And after he is appointed to be the general and the leader of the people. So now he sends a message to the people of Ammon, to the king of Ammon. Let's start with Pasuk Yud Beis, verse 12. Vayishlach Yiftach malachim el melech b'nei Ammon lemor. Ammon was now on the verge of attacking Israel. So now Yiftach, so they both have their armies, and now Yiftach sends a message to the king of Ammon saying, Mali Valach, what is between me and you? Why are you starting up with us? What problem do we have with each other? That you've come against me now to fight in my land. Why are you starting up with me? So the king of the sons of Ammon said to the messengers of Yiftach, he lakach Yisrael es arti, because Israel stole my land. Haven't we heard that before? Something's never changed. When they went up from Egypt, they took all of these cities up to the Jordan, and now returned them in peace. Literally, land for peace. Some things never change. You made them a land for peace offer, right? Why do we have to fight over it? Give us back the land that you stole from us, and then we can all live in peace together. Okay? So what did Yiftach say? Remember, Yiftach was not a Gadol Hadar, wasn't a great rabbi. He was a simple Jew, but he was a real Jew. He was authentic. So Yiftach continued and sent messengers back to the king of Ammon. Took a little longer back then. They didn't have telephones. And he said to him, Ko amar Yiftach, so says Yiftach. First of all, Lo lakach Yisrael, it's Eretz Moab, it's Eretz Moab. Israel didn't take the land of Moab and the land of Ammon. And then he goes on and gives him a history lesson about how the land was conquered by Sichon, and then Israel conquered it from Sichon, so they acquired that land fair and square. We'll skip the whole history lesson. First of all, he gives him a brief history lesson. We didn't steal your land. Bottom line, it wasn't your land anymore. We want it fair and square, fighting a different nation. You never had any arguments against that nation when they took your land, because it wasn't your land anymore. So now it's our land. It dropped into our lap, and it's ours. Okay? We'll continue now with Pasuk Chaf Gimel, verse 23. And now, Hashem Elokei Yisrael Horish Esramori Mipnei Amo Yisrael. Hashem, the God of Israel, drove out the Amori from before his people Israel, and shall you inherit it? Meaning God gave us the land, and now you're going to come and take our land away from us? Nothing doing. Hello, Asher Yorishka Kamosh Alokecha also Tirash. Isn't it true that the land that Kamosh, your God, bequeathed to you, you inherit? Meaning you have this God Kamosh. He's probably mocking him. I don't think Yiftach really thought that Kamosh was a real God. But you have God with a lowercase g, Kamosh, and you believe that he fights for you, and you won battles and conquered land because of him. You're not giving that land back. What nation in the world is giving back land that they took from those who lived in it prior to them? Nobody. So why should we be any different? Right? Play by your own rules. No double standards, he says. and all that Hashem gave to us, all those that Hashem drove out from before us and gave us their land, we're going to inherit. Same rules for we don't have to be different than anybody else. The Jewish people are the only people in the history of the world who multiple times fought defensive wars against enemies that wanted to annihilate them. And the tables were turned, and they conquered land from their enemies, and then begged their enemies to take the land back. Begged their enemies, chased after their enemies, please allow us to surrender to you. Because no other people on earth that ever tried to stunt like that would continue to exist for very long. But Hashem has a lot of pity on us, and He's allowed us to continue in spite of all of these things. But Yiftach wasn't taking this from anybody. He says, your God gave you land, our God gave us land. You're keeping your land? Well, we're going to keep our land too. He continues. Now he gets to stage 2 of his message. And now, Hatov Tov Atami Balak ben Tzipor Melech Moab, are you any better than Balak, the son of Tzipor, the king of Moab? This is from the times of Moshe. Harov Rav Em Yisrael and Nilcham Bam, did he quarrel with Israel over this land or wage war against us for it? B'Sheves Yisrael b'Cheshbon u'Bivnoseh, when Israel settled in Cheshbon and its suburbs, u'Be'arar u'Bivnoseh, and in Aror and its suburbs, u'Bechol Aram asher Aydei Arnon, and all the cities by Arnon, Shlosh Me'al Shana, for 300 years, the Jews were dwelling in this land. U'Madua lo itzaltem b'Esei, why didn't you save this land, rescue the land in all of these days? Meaning that there were many kings who came before you who never registered a claim that we stole their land. Why are you coming along 300 years later, waking up and saying, we stole your land? We didn't steal your land, and how come your predecessors didn't raise any issues about it? You're just making up something out of thin air because you want to start a war. You just want a pretext to start a war with us. I have not sinned against you, said Yiftach. And you are doing evil against me, to wage against me. Here, key words: Yishbot Hashem Hashofet Hayom. God, the judge, shall judge today. Bein b'nei Israel uvein b'nei Ammon, between the sons of Israel and the sons of Ammon. Let God pick who is right over here. This is a holy war. You have your God, we have our God. Let the better God win. Let the more righteous people win. Okay? What Jewish leader talks like that today to the nations of the world? Again, Yiftach was not a Talmid Chacham. He is similar to the average Israeli Jew who has a strong spiritual feeling, who has a Pesach Seder, who goes to Shur on Yom Kippur, who says Baruch Hashem, who believes in God in their heart, but doesn't keep the mitzvah so well, doesn't spend a lot of time studying Torah, right? But they believe in Hashem. They have a very strong kernel of faith. That's what Yiftach was. He knew how to talk to our enemies. Of course, we should do the mitzvahs better and study more Torah. But he was a simple Jew. But he was an authentic Jew and a proud Jew, and he wasn't taking this from anybody. He didn't pander to our enemies. So what happened? The king of the sons of Ammon did not listen to the words of Yiftach, Asher Shalach Elav, that he sent to him. But and there settled on Yiftach a spirit of Hashem. This phrase appears multiple times in the Navi. It means essentially not a spirit of prophecy, but a spirit of great courage and knowing that Hashem is with you. I've never felt this exactly, but somehow you know. Sometimes in a time of war, you really know. You don't just think you know, but you know that you know Hashem is really with you, and you're not afraid of anything. Because if Hashem is with you, why should you be afraid of anything? He had the spirit of Hashem. Vayavar es HaGilad v'es Menashe, and he crossed to Gilad and Menashe. Vayavar es Mitzpe Gilad and Mitzpe Gilad over Ammon. He now traveled all the way to now meet the sons of Ammon in battle. And then he took a vow, as we know. And I want to do just the. We'll skip to Lamed Beis. Vayavar Yiftach al bnei Ammon lilachem bam. So Yiftach crossed over to the bnei Ammon to do battle against them. Vayitnei Hashem biyado, and Hashem delivered them into his hands. And Vayake me Aroer, and he struck them from Aroer. Yad Boacha Minis Esrim Ir, until you come to Minis, 20 cities. Yad Abel Kramim, until a place called Abel Kramim. Makkah Gedolamot, a great Makkah. No mercy. He struck them. He tried to avoid the battle. He said, look, I don't have a problem with you. You shouldn't have a problem with me. Let's all go home and be happy. But if you want to fight, we'll fight. We're not mowing the grass. We're finishing the job. We're finishing it right here. And here's the key words. Vayikanu b'nei Ammon mipnei b'nei Yisrael. And the people of the sons of Ammon were humbled before the sons of Israel. They were humbled before the sons of Israel. And this dovetails with, we'll do one more pasuk going back to the Chumash over here, the Torah, in Parshas Kiseitze, talks about the laws of war. This is Perek Chaf Gimel, chapter 23, pasuk Lamed Gimel, verse 33. And it says, actually, no, that's the wrong pasuk. It says in Parshas Shoftim, actually, the end of Parshas Shoftim, it says when you fight your enemy, it says ad ridta, until you cast them down completely, until you utterly conquer your enemies. I don't have the exact pasuk here, but it's at the end of Parsha Shoftim, ad ridta, you have to fight your enemies until you conquer them, until the men of fighting age are slaughtered, they're subservient to you, they're paying taxes. You finish the job. There's no such thing as winning a battle, satisfying the nations of the world. When you have your enemy beaten, you beat them some more, and you finish a job. That is a Torah perspective. That's a Torah perspective in fighting wars. If we do this, if we really want this in our hearts, if we want a true Jewish army fighting according to the ways of the Torah, and we're doing what Hashem demands of us, we are a holy people with a holy army. We are guaranteed to win. Our soldiers are guaranteed that no harm will befall them. Hashem Shechina will be with us, and we will win. And we don't have anything to worry about. If we don't keep the Torah, we leave it up to chance. We leave it up to calculating who has stronger armies and politics and gamesmanship and that sort of thing. Then, unfortunately, terrible things can happen. We've learned that lesson many, many times. We shouldn't have to learn it again. Let's learn what the Torah says. This is all very basic. It's Chumash and Rashi. It's not my personal opinion. I don't have opinions. It's all Torah, straight Torah, and I don't care what anybody's opinion is unless it's rooted in the Torah as well. We have to follow the Torah. Hashem will be with us. Hashem should bless all of our people. Hashem should bless us physically, bless us spiritually. That we should all wake up. This war is a big wake up call, and I daven every day that Hashem should wake us up as gently as possible, because we have to wake up. We can wake up the easy way by learning the Torah and truly internalizing the messages, or we have to wake up a harsher way. So we have to all wake up as gently as possible, and then the victory should be smooth, rapid, and permanent.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.